Okay, so today we have an install video for the 2007 JDM Subaru Legacy. If you're watching this, you probably know that it can be quite complex. First of all, due to the double DIN head unit from factory that is usually placed here and often integrated with the air conditioning controls. So to do this, you can either buy an aftermarket fascia, which is around 650 New Zealand dollars, or you can find somewhere else to place an aftermarket radio. So what I have actually done, so at the moment I have taken out the factory radio and air conditioning controls, and also my GPS unit that was in here, which was all in Japanese, so basically it rendered useless. This is where I am going to locate my new aftermarket radio, which I've gone and picked up just from my local audio store. Over here in New Zealand it's Repco. But yeah, so basically what I've picked up is a mechless unit, which essentially means that it does not have a CD player, and generally the mounting depth is a bit shallower than usual, which is quite significant in these cars because, I don't know if you can see in here, I'm going to have to pull these cables out, but there's not much room in here to mount a full-size stereo. But by all means, if you do have the space in here, I don't have the space, because I'd assume that is my car's computer, but if you don't have that there, you should be able to fit a standard single DIN head unit in there. But basically this video will cover the basic wiring principles to bypass the factory Mcintosh amp. In my case I have the EF1259i, which is a 5-channel amp which runs the front two 6-inch factory speakers and the rear 6-inch factory speakers, and then also of course the subwoofer, which is, in my case, is located underneath the boot. So what I've done to start with is actually, so go and purchase this mechless unit. I'm going to figure out a way to mount it up here and then tidy that up after, but I'm just doing some testing and whatnot on the wiring. So what I have done to start with is I have gone and bought some wiring harnesses, which I've figured out I will not actually need. So basically this is the harness here, which goes from your factory Subaru output to your aftermarket adapter, depending on what stereo you've purchased. So mine is for a Kenwood. I've just unplugged the speaker connection at the moment. We'll get to that in a second. But basically I'll just show you here. So what you have here is essentially all your power wires, ground wires, and the like, accessory, memory and ignition, I'd say, off the top of my head. So just by plugging that in for a quick test, you can see that if I turn the car on, just to ignition, the head unit will now turn on. But I will not have sound. I've already tried to plug in the the speaker wiring in here, but you do not get sound. This is because you need to bypass the factory amplifier, and the factory amplifier has, if I can pull it out here, I'll just show you on the stock unit. It has this, I think it is referred to as a DIN cable, which runs to the amplifier along with this connection here, which basically runs to the amplifier as well. So what basically you need to do to start with is to pull out the DIN out of the factory amplifier, or completely basically disconnect the factory amplifier, which in my case was under the passenger seat, and then from here you are going to be bypassing the stereo wiring. So a quick check that I did just to figure out what the wiring for each speaker was. So once can't quite see it here, but this is the other end of the harness that goes to the amplifier. You'll know what I'm talking about. Should do if you're watching this video. So basically in my case it is a 18 pin, and to check which pins go to which speakers, I have just gone and got a simple 9-volt battery with the connections for a positive and negative wires, which you can then go and just test if you put them into each of those holes. In my case, you had generally the speakers, this inputs for them were one directly above the other. So if you put your positive and negative in there from this battery, and just play around with that for a little bit, you will have sound coming out of your speakers. Alright, so carrying on from where we left off, I will just ignore those purple wires for the moment. I'll just quickly show you how I determined which if those inputs go to which speakers. So as I said, I have my little 9-volt battery here. So if we, and Subaru, since they make the wiring quite confusing, I won't show you the back of that, but it's not as simple as all the negative wires have a white stripe or a black stripe as you'd expect. It's all different, but what I believe from just reading forums and looking at diagrams is that in this case, all these pins on the top are your positives, and then all the ones on the bottom are your negatives. And when you do this, it's important that you have your car ignition turned on. So, if we put the positive up there, sorry, it's a bit tricky to record and do this at the same time. Okay, so positive up there, negative in there. Hopefully you could have heard that crackling. That was the rear right. I'll just take the camera off and you'll hear it hopefully. So basically, I guess I will do that for all of those pins and figure out where my rear left, rear right, front left, front right speakers are, and from there, before I actually go and cut those wires, what I've done is got some wiring just to do further testing, just because I like to test things before I go and cut wires and muck something up, because it's happened before. So what I've got is just some, can't see it there because camera's, there you go. So some 4mm 15 amp wiring, which essentially what you're going to do is make a loom out of that for your speakers, and then run it to your wiring input on the new harness. As I said before, I'm not actually going to be using this. I'm just going to use the factory output, which essentially has all the same wires, except it doesn't have these adapters. So yeah, basically they'll all just connect here. The loom that I am going to run, I'm not sure where I am going to run that yet, maybe under the front left over there and up, or maybe just from here and then along the trim here underneath the carpet or something, and up and underneath and to the back of the stereo. Okay, carrying on. So basically what I've done now, so you go through it and test all those points to see which speakers they are relative to, and remembering that this is still testing. That cable that I showed you before, I've just run up and it's just loosely touching the connections in the back of this speaker harness. So by referring to my little diagram here that came with the harness, I can see, since I was actually testing the since I'm testing the rear left, I can see that green is positive and green and black is negative. So we've run those to there, to the green and black, and now in theory I should be able to play a song and just that rear left speaker will work. So if I can see if I can just do that. There you go. So basically I can go and now cut that speaker wire from down at the harness underneath the seat. And what I'm going to do is repeat that process for identifying the other speakers, and I'm going to label up each one just with a sticky tab note, whatever you want to call it, wrap it around the speakers, label it as rear left, rear right, and so on, and then run it from here to wherever I'm going to run it, and then hook it all into this new harness. I like to use crimps. Soldering's definitely the best, soldering and taping. Stripping and twisting and taping is poor. I'd highly do not recommend that. Things come loose and muck up, so yeah, just do it properly. Get some crimps or solder it. Only reason I'm not soldering is I don't have a solder. Maybe I'll source one. I'm not too sure, but yeah, basically that covers the whole process. The only thing I don't know at the moment is if I put my double din back in there. I already know my HVAC still works, because that's just one separate cable in there somewhere, and my hazard lights still work. I'm just not sure if I'll have illumination to that stock original unit, but that doesn't faze me too much, but you know, it would be good if it did work, I guess. But yeah, apart from that, I have finally had success with finishing this off. Just had to run back down to the audio store because this wasn't turning on. The reason for that was I had it working prior to this before I put all the Mcintosh unit back in, had sound and everything. So I came back and I was like, sweet, I will put this unit back in and we will all be done, and that didn't turn on. So basically what I'd done is when I was playing music on the way back home, I didn't have the aerial in, and your aerial is actually a grounding point as well. So that was blowing under here, so I've just gone and put that back in with the aerial. The reason this is on a slant is because I need to actually drill a tiny hole to run it through there, and then it will be perfect. So yeah, that's basically the whole video on how to bypass the Mcintosh factory amplifier, and I will quickly put up a photo of the finished install, and then I'm going to have a piece of metal above here which one of my friends has given me just to tidy that all up, and it should look awesome. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I hope you have success on trying to achieve the same thing. Cheers.